Hi, good evening. This is Pain to Power, and I am your host, Maria Cosme, also known as Brown Girl Interrupting. And this is the show where we turn our struggles into strength by understanding how to heal and tools in order to empower ourselves in community. And thank you so much for joining me. Please make sure if you haven't done it yet, you go and subscribe, hit the bell below, and you like this show with a thumbs up, and make sure you pass it along to someone who wants some healing as well. So I am really excited for my guests today, and in a few moments I'm going to be introducing them, but I wanted to share a story with you. I had a real interesting weekend. On Thursday, things sometimes just happen, right? We wonder, why did this happen? How did it happen? What am I supposed to take away from it? So on Thursday, the second hamster now that we've had in 6 months, went missing. Totally missing. I don't know how. He's a Houdini. He escaped from his cage, fully escaped. And we spent the last few days trying to figure out where he was. But in the process, on Friday, when my daughter came home to me, I had to make the decision as a parent. Am I going to tell her the truth, or am I going to go buy another hamster and tell her he's fine? And I know this is a decision a lot of us as parents make, but I made the decision instead not to go get another hamster. And I told her the truth. And we wonder often, right? Why did this happen to me? Because I'm wondering, why did I have to be the parent responsible for the hamster that lost the hamster? But we spent the weekend not being sad, but rather kind of like thinking about all the stories of what this escaped Reuben is doing on his adventures. We wrote a book together almost in our minds and told a whole story of the adventures of Reuben. And we talked a lot, and we talked about change, and we talked about loss, and we talked about grief, and we talked and we talked and we talked. And then, and through it, I think my daughter, the hamster wanted freedom. God, that's for sure. The hamster wanted freedom, right? And so, strangely enough, why do things happen? Last night, as we're sitting and watching a movie, we hear some scurrying, and the hamster pops out of a bag sitting on the floor, just happily, little hamster, Reuben, all excited to be wherever he was. And we got him and we put him in his cage. And so hamster Reuben is back. And the great hamscape stories are to come by my daughter. But what I realized is that sometimes things happen to us that are our lessons. And I think the lesson was a lot of lessons for me as a parent, but also for her. And fate is interesting like that. Fate also sometimes brings us not just experiences, but people into our lives. And today I am really excited because the two people I'm about to introduce to you really were joined by fate and are coming here to share their story of pain to power, and also their love, and how they have maintained through challenges and life happening the love that exists between the two of them. So please welcome to the stage Christina and Eddie Sledge House, the owners and creators of Sledge House Media, writers and filmmakers, as well as authors, and just an amazing couple who are showing us how fate can bring you the right people, and resilience and work can help you stay together. So thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
I'm so happy to have you both here. How's your evening going?
Pretty good.
Yeah, really great.
Yeah.
Great.
Very uneventful.
We didn't lose a hamster.
You didn't lose a hamster, but you have children, so I mean, you've had some losses and moments where you've had to make decisions, right, with your kids before.
Absolutely,
yeah.
yes. Unfortunately, we've experienced the death of two pets.
Mm-hmm.
So we understand that, and
there's a lot within that, right, and a lot of different decisions. So I'm really excited to have you here today, and you have quite an interesting story to tell us and talk about. But before we get into your story, I always ask my guests, because I believe that it's a very personal experience to think about how pain becomes power in our lives, because not everybody makes that choice. But Christina, I'm going to ask you first, for you, when you think about the idea of turning pain into power, what does that mean to you?
Wow, I see that as an opportunity. I've always been the type of person that's been very resilient. When I go through something, I don't say, why is this happening to me? I say, what am I supposed to learn from this? And so every time I go through a painful situation or season, I'm always using that as an opportunity to figure out, well, what is it I'm supposed to gain from this versus why is this happening? And so the pain, I always use that as a way to turn it into an opportunity to learn something.
I love that. I mean, an opportunity to learn is definitely what we opened up with here, right? And for people to continue to do that, right? But that really does change then your perspective. And Eddie, how about you? When you think about it, what has that meant for you?
I've been through so much pain in my life. It's like a wall. I kick it down and just keep it moving. You keep it in the back of your head, but like you said, it's an opportunity and opportunity to get better, to grow, to understand, the mistakes that you made, or what can you grow through. So I've always been the kind of person that just saw a wall, kicked it down, went through it, just keep moving.
I love that. Keep moving. And that's beautiful. And it sounds like you guys are aligned in that perspective, which I'm sure has helped you both a lot over the time. And so, you both, one of the whole pieces in terms of your documentary, Joined by Faith, that you wrote, that is all about your story and your love story, is how different your lives were before you met. So I'd love to hear just a little bit about just your own upbringings and what you yourself have taken away about identity in your own upbringings.
You want to go first?
You go first. You were born first.
By how many months or weeks?
4 months.
4 months in the same
4
hospital.
months. Okay. All right. So officially.
Well, my pain came automatically from the beginning. My mother wasn't married to my father. She was married to another man. But when I was in her stomach, when I was in her womb, she was schizophrenic. So to calm her down, her and my father used to use cocaine to calm her down. And then when I was born, 6 months, when I was 6 months years old, they was in his house in this apartment, third floor, and he turned around and she was holding me in the window. And when he turned around, she fell out backwards, and he grabbed me out of her arms to try to grab her. She slipped through his hands, and she hit the ground 3 stories up. And then 3 days later, she died in the hospital. So my beginnings started automatically rough with a step family who was older adults. My cousins and stepbrothers, and my cousins already adults already. So they weren't able to adjust to me. And this is like the 80s, the crack era. So they was on drugs and alcohol in my home. And my father did the best he could do to raise me, which he did. But I saw a lot of stuff, lived around a lot of stuff, gunshots, violence in the neighborhood, stuff like that. But then even within my own family, I was like the kid that, since they were so older than, and they also had their lives to live, no one was really focused on how to raise this kid. My father was 50 years older than me. So no one knew how to take the time to raise this kid. I had to adapt to them in their lives. So from the beginning, I had pain, but I never looked at it like that. I always looked at it like, this is the life that I have to live. And, no one on my block's born with a silver spoon. So, I just took what I had to get, took what was given to me, and understood life, and just kept it moving. But yeah, from when we wrote the book, our memoir, and then did the documentary, you start to understand that it was pain. Chris brought it to my attention that it was pain. I just saw it as everyday life that I had to keep moving. So I never saw it as pain.
So what do you think that is a lot, right? That is pain, but it's also a lot of intense change and adjustment and loss. What has that taught you, or what did it teach you as a child about life?
it taught me the crazy thing. You see crime and stuff like that too, right? My father got robbed in the same building that we lived in and stuff like that. So you start understanding fear, right? You start understanding that no matter if you lived in a neighborhood and everyone knew you, it could happen to you. So you have to adapt to your third eye. You have to always be on point. You always got to wonder if your best friend or your friend is going to come do something to you and backstab you, stuff like that. So it kept you on edge, but it also taught me to that any given moment, anything can happen. Your life could turn great or your life could turn into a horrible situation. So it taught me in the switch in a snap of a finger, life could change, and never took it for granted. You just got to stay alert. You got to stay alert and understand it. You got to go where it goes to.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, because it sounds like it made you very vigilant, right?
Yeah.
And aware of the things around you. So we're going to come back to that because I think there's a lot of layers to unpack here, right? But Christina, I'd love to hear, like, what about you? Like, what's your story and upbringing and some of the things you've taken away?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is we both grew up in Brooklyn. So we're from the same city, right? Same borough in New York. But we had totally different lives. I lived in the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn. He grew up in Flatbush. And in my family, I came from a Caribbean family background. My family was from Panama and Barbados. And so they were very much immigrants that came to this country, came to New York City. They were bootstrappers. And so with that, they decided that they would start their own businesses. And they owned real estate. And so with that, they bought brownstones, and then they were able to pass that down to my great grandmother, which then became the mother of my grandmother. And we had family all throughout Brooklyn, but we were very fortunate to have a family home in the Hamptons. And back then that was unheard of for people of color to be able to do something like that. And so I had privilege in that respect. I went to cotillions and was a debutante and that sort of thing. And so I grew up around that. But I also saw the side that Eddie saw, where in the environment I grew up in, there was the crack epidemic happening. But I always had this village around me that kind of encapsulated us from that. So we always had 5 generations in my mother's side of the family. So I always had my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother available to us at all times. Godparents, the neighbors, were the village. And so we always had positive experiences, even though we had a rough environment we were living in. So I always had optimism around me, and that the message was I could do anything and be anything. And education was my ticket to success.
Wow. So very different upbringings, right? But you even talk about, even just the difference of being a daughter of immigrants versus not, right? Like having family established here in the U.S. for so long, right? That's a very different experience right then and there. And it sounds like obviously you had a lot of community and connection, and that was really important to your upbringing. So for you, what do you think some of your biggest takeaways have been in how that has given you the ability to kind of navigate your own life now?
Well, it definitely, again, I think it goes back to that resilience, like just learning from the immigrant experience, the upbringing, the struggle, starting from nothing, and having to build something up, having that fortitude, having that dedication, determination. So I just always had that instilled in me. So that's what I draw upon when a challenge is presented to me in life. And so for me, I don't feel like there's anything that's impossible. It's just trying to figure out, well, how can I do this? Well, maybe it's not this path, but what is the path? So I don't see a roadblock. I just see a detour.
And in contrast to that, my father was born in the South. So when he was 14 in Tennessee, he saw a lynching in back of his home. And he immediately just the next day he just left on his own. So he just left from Tennessee and found his way up to New York City. And then when he run into people that he met, he had to learn how to become a man because he was 14 when he left on his own. So he had to depend on other men and other people in the city to teach him how to become a man. And he grew up with that diligence, like you said, that I had. So that's kind of in my blood. Like that's what he taught me to watch out for because imagine the ups and downs that he went through before he had me at 50 years old. So from 14 to 50, he had to learn a lot and had to depend on people and saw a lot of backstabbing. That's how he instilled in me to watch my back. So yes, definitely a big contrast to our upbringing.
Well, and that's really different, right? It's like almost this individual perspective of like striving and fighting and doing for yourself because that is who you rely on. And then that connection to collective community and that upbringing, like that importance of it. So when you two got together, right? So you met in Canarsie was the space, right? That's very, like, I imagine your personalities and the way you navigate life was different. How did that meld together in your just way of just meeting each other? You're teenagers, right? How did teenagers navigate that? Or was it harder was it easier in teenage years and harder maybe when you got older? I have so many questions now. I'm curious. Like,
I'll let her start it and then I'll start because I'll end it because I'll talk forever about it.
Actually, that's a great question. Mm-hmm. I think it was easier when we were teenagers because we were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and just very eager. At that age, you don't have much fear, I don't think, because you're still young. You think you can do everything. Mm-hmm. So for us, I think we were just more intrigued by the other because we were so different. And I think in our case, opposites attract. It's true. Mm-hmm. He was in that time, the 90s, he was considered what you call roughneck, back then. So, he was kind of like a hoodlum, mm-hmm. So to speak. And, I'm not necessarily should have been with someone like him, but he was so charming, and he was just very a gentleman. He was a protector, and I think he learned that from being around his father and older men and learning that I need to be this protector to the woman that I care about, that I love. I want to make sure she's okay. He would walk me to my class, walk me to anywhere I needed to go, walk me to the train. When I was dating someone else, he would come pick me up from work at 11 p.m. midnight. He didn't care that I was with someone else. So, and that was what I think attracted me to him. And he didn't have money, but he thought money was what I wanted. But it wasn't that. It was just, I think for me, it was just, I wanted true love. I wanted security. And that's what he offered. And that's what kind of attracted me to him. But I think it was easier to answer your question. I think it was easier when we were younger, but as we got older, we started to see those differences and how our upbringing impacted us. And we talk about it in our book, but and then I'll leave that to
the people we like I tell people to this day, I never met anyone like Chris. Right, never met anyone like Chris. Right. When I was doing my thing in the streets, I was just out there. Right. So when I finally meet someone like Chris, who's not taking the bull crap or not a hood rat or is not that kind of girl in the street that I'm used to growing up in the projects. It's like, wow, this is great. She asked me out in high school. She had a friend ask me out, and then I was like, okay, I'll do it. But then, we exchanged numbers and I talked to her on the phone. And then the very next day, I've been chasing her every day. Like even in my dreams now, we broke up because I broke up with her in high school. So even though I'm dreaming about it and I break up with her, I'm still chasing her in my dreams to this day. and we've been married 25 years, so knew each other over 30. So, yeah, it just, you know, it was fate for her to ask her friend to ask me out because it was great timing. But yeah, she's even to this day, she's different than anyone I ever knew. So I've been riding with her ever since. And
that's awesome. I mean, it's beautiful and it's awesome, and I love that. And I think, Chris, what you said about like what you were looking for is so different sometimes than teenage years. So that in and of itself, right? You both seem like really your upbringings in different ways, though, really made you stand out in a different way of maturity and what you wanted from the people you were choosing, right, in life, which is awesome. And I see our chat blowing up, so I just want to honor it a little bit. I saw some conversation happening over there. Hi, No Holdbacks TV. Tasha's with us, one of our Ranters Union fams. Welcome. And that is beautiful, right? Geologic and friends, thank you so much for tuning in. Yes, absolutely, right? So, you know, you said it, you talked about true love, Christina, right? So tell me a little bit about it. So I know that your book was obviously about joining in fate and the fact that you believe this was all fate. But before you met each other, did you believe in fate? Did you believe in love? Or did it evolve as you met it, like in this?
I did. I'm a true romantic at heart. Like I am a rom-com junkie. I love the Hallmark Channel. Like I love happy endings. So for me, it was always, I believed in love. I believed that there was this one person for me, true romance. So yeah, for me, that I always had that like fairy tale, kind of thought. And we kind of call our love story a urban true fairy tale because we were different, but then we had this fate that brought us together. We were joined by fate, and it's just a love story, and when people read the story, when they read the book or they watch the documentary Joined by Fate, they always say that like this is a movie, like this is, I want to know what happens, I want to know what happens at the end, even though they know we've been married for 25 years, people who know us for 30 plus years, 25 years, they'll say, I still want to know what happens. I want to read what happened. So, but I've always been that person. Yeah. To answer your question.
And I've been the total opposite. I even to this day, rom-coms, I watch it just to make her happy. But I like when people get killed, stabbed. I need a suspense murder. I need a thriller, and I've always been like that. And it's crazy because my father, I grew up with my father, so he was a Rolling Stone, but he was older, so I listened to older music. So I didn't get into hip hop. She got into hip hop earlier than me, but I got into it like going into late 80s. So my father used to listen to the OJs, and the Manhattans and the Four Tops and Gladys Knight on them. So they were always talking about, mostly, especially the men, take care of home or take care of your loved one and stuff like that. So I always had that back in my head, but I was never a romantic.
Yes, you were.
I guess she probably saw it in me, but.
Well, he was for you, Christina. That's the whole point. He wasn't for anyone else.
Yeah, but everyone else, I wasn't a romantic at heart. I was just like, I had to bring her flowers to classes, like, and knock on the door, interrupt the class, and be like, "Hey, can I bring this to my wife?" Back then, he was 14 years old, and they'll let me come in. I give the roses to her in front of the whole class, and but the rest of the world was like, "Yo, you didn't get nothing." No, I'm just
and I love that. And No Holdbacks TV says that good music. So I mean, but that I think is so important because yes, I mean, I think Christina. Maybe everybody was assuming you might say that, right? Like women, we tend to be known for this romantic ideas and the rom-coms and believing in love, but guys often not, right? The skepticism and maybe it's not real, right? But I think you guys are such a great story of this idea that when it's the right person, when it's that person that's worth that effort for you, that you as a man will do it. You'll do all those steps, right? But you also mentioned, right? You've been married for 25 years, the fairy tale, right? Definitely, Tasha, right? You've been married for 25 years, but that is no small feat, right? And I imagine that in those years, right, there have been some big pain points, right? And I'm curious to know individually first, let's start there. What are some major moments that you had to work through yourself personally in order to be present in this connection with each other?
Well, I lost both my parents. I lost my real mother when I was 6 months old, my stepmother when I was 14, and my father when I was just married, a year after marriage. So
21.
When I was 21,
22.
yeah, like a year after we were married. But he always loved Christina anyway. But every time I went through pain during marriage, I didn't have to go through it by myself because I had her. So I don't know how to explain or even recognize pain without this woman somehow in my life. Even when I was 14, my mother died. So I never had, especially when married, I never had to go through that by myself when it comes to pain. Yeah.
Well, it's beautiful. Yeah. That says a lot.
Wow.
How about for you, Christina? Like, are there things that you feel like you've understood about yourself through some pain moments in your own life?
Yeah, I mean, this is covered in our book, right? Our memoir, The Story of Christina and I, and then our film, Joined by Fate. I talk about, there was a dark moment where I was in a relationship before me, because Eddie and I, we were high school sweethearts, right? We broke up for about 4 years.
But we saw each other off and on.
Yeah. And I went to Temple University in Philly for my undergrad degree. And during that time, that 4 years that we were apart, I was with someone else. I was dating someone else. That relationship ended in a terrible breakup. It was just tumultuous. And during that time, it was just really painful and rough. And I lost myself in that relationship. I lost my confidence. I lost everything about just feeling like a confident woman. And so I prayed on it because I was in such a low point of depression that I prayed to God and I said, God, please send me the man I'm supposed to be with. Just send me the person. I didn't ask. I didn't have a criteria. I didn't have a list. I didn't have a checklist. I didn't say, make sure he has this, and that. I just said, please just give me the person I'm supposed to be with. And lo and behold, 3 minutes later, I get off my knees. I was on my knees praying. I get off my knees. The phone rings. It's my mother. She's telling me that Eddie is in Brooklyn. I was going to Brooklyn for Christmas break. He was there. And she was like, Eddie's here. Like, we hadn't talked. It was maybe about a year. I hadn't spoke with him.
We saw each other once in a while, off and on, at numerous places that we didn't even know we was going to be at.
Right. And so, but it was through that process, that pain point that I was going through with that relationship, that I realized what I wanted in a man and what I needed in myself. During that breakup time with the other guy, I had to learn how to live by myself. I had to learn that I didn't need someone, but it's almost like I had to break myself down to build myself back up to that confidence, to where I needed to be ready to receive the person I was supposed to be with. And I guess that process was when God answered my prayer in 3 days. And then 2 days after that, he proposed to me. Yeah. And I had to accept because God answered my prayer in that moment. So,
right. Wow. So, I mean, and I mean, 3 days later. So Eddie, what about like for you, what made you know that 3 days later, like that was it? Like what was that moment for you?
All right. So when we was in high school, she had a friend ask me out. Right. And I'm like, why don't your friend come over and ask me out herself? So I'm thinking she's shy. You know, she was shy to ask me out. So the day that I did come, I shouldn't have been in Brooklyn. I was in the Army, but they gave me leave, and I shouldn't have even been in New York at the time. I should have been still in the Army because I messed up And they was like, well, they're taking away my leave. But then my first sergeant come in my room that weekend and was like, hey, I'm letting you go spend time with your family. So I shouldn't have even been in New York at that moment. So when I'm in New York, we got a connection, a brother that is deceased now, we was connected with. So no matter what happened to us, I'm in the Army, she's there, I always was connected to her brother. He's younger, but you know, I knew a family when he was like 14 years old, when they was like 10. So when I come back to Brooklyn, I go pick him up and I go see her. And I didn't even know she was there. Right? She come out the back room and I'm back in love again. But I knew it wasn't. But I knew we wasn't gonna get married or anything like that. It was just that I'm happy to see her. I didn't know she was there. Mm-hmm. So now, I got a car and I got jewelry now. You know, I'm looking good. I'm like, look, you know, I always look good, but I'm saying, I thought I was,
in your mind, you're at that next level, right?
This next level, I'm like, let's go out. It's winter. It's cold. I'm like, well, I got a car. Let's go out to a date. You know, nothing more than that. And we couldn't think of anywhere to go. So where we went was back to my father's house, which is in the project. So it was like a project date. Because my father loved us. So I'm like, well, let's go back to my father's house out of nowhere. I mean, we could have went anywhere. And we went there. And when we went there, I went to the back room and talked to someone. And my father just went up to, Christina was like, hey, if Eddie asked you out to marry him, what would you say? And she was like, yeah, I'll do it. No problem. You're not thinking that it's going to be soon. So when I walk out the room, my father come up to me and was like, hey, Christina told me if you ask her out to marry you, she'll do it in a heartbeat. So I'm like, it's the same thing like high school.
Your dad orchestrated it.
Yeah, she's shy. So I know that she probably had my father come ask me this because she's shy. So I know this is a yes. Once I asked her, this is a yes. Mm-hmm. So it was a no-brainer. Later on that night, I asked her, she said yes. And, next thing you know, less than 2 months later, we eloped. So I just knew that she asked my father to ask me because she was shy, but she weren't. So it was like the Lord just picked them up, was like, look, I'm tired of these two playing around. I need you to hook this up. So if he told me that, I knew it was true. So that's why. Now, if he doesn't tell that lie, we're not getting married that moment. Because none of us are thinking that. Maybe dating, but it was far distance.
Right.
She's in Philly, but yeah.
But all he had to do was plant the seed, right? And he was strategic. That was well played, Dad. Right?
Yeah. He didn't know. He did not know that she was coming. We did not know we was gonna go back there. We just couldn't think of anywhere to go with a car, and it was cold, and we said, let's go back there.
It was Christmas Eve, things were closed or getting ready to close early. Mm-hmm. So so he proposed on Christmas Eve, which is Christmas is my favorite holiday. That wasn't planned.
Yeah, none of this was planned.
Yeah.
But once he said it, I just knew that she was playing shy girl again. And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, this is a no-brainer. I'm doing this.
This is a rom-com, right? It's like we couldn't have written it.
That is so funny. So Tasha from No Hold Back TV says, in my colored voice, God did, right? Like I think there was another comment she had up there. We throw that back up. He shouldn't have been there. He was where he was supposed to be. # look at God. That's for certain, right? So so now 25 years, you have children, right? How many kids?
Two girls.
Two girls. How old are they?
24 and 17.
24 and 17. That's beautiful. Congratulations. That's amazing. And so I'm sure as parents, right? Like we know when our kids find the right people. We know when our kids are with the right people. We know what's right for them sometimes. But we coming back to that question we asked about, how it becomes more challenging as you get older when you come from different places and you have different upbringings. How did you navigate that as parents with very different perspectives?
That's a great question. A great question. Actually came into play. This is funny. This is a funny story. Our daughter, our oldest daughter, she's 24 now. Mm-hmm. But when her first Christmas, maybe her first or second, maybe third Christmas, she's 3 years old. By this time, she knows who Santa Claus is. Mm-hmm. He didn't grow up.
I didn't grow up
believing in Santa Claus because his parents were older. Mm-hmm. So they didn't play those, Santa Claus is bringing you gifts games. And, they were poor. Yeah. So they didn't have a lot of money
So we got clothes, we got socks, underwear. We had a table tree. So, you know, I never grew up with the fairy tale of Santa.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So for him, he didn't believe in even telling our child, you know, that there's a Santa Claus. He was like, for what? This is,
And my father was always a truth teller.
Why are we doing that?
My father was always a truth teller. He's not holding any. He's an old soul, an old man that didn't want me to grow up in La La Land. So he no food, no tooth fairies, and it was always the real.
Right. So he grew up with that. So basically, you know, with that, I felt like he was robbed in a way of a childhood because of that. So that's where we kind of butted heads because my family, they believed in giving us those childhood, you know, magical kind of moments. My father was really big on that, and he gave us everything on our Christmas list and then some. You know, I talk about in the book how, you know, we had like a sea of toys, you know, every Christmas around the tree. You know, I grew up with, you know, 2 brothers and 1 sister. So it was 4 of us. And so my father went above and beyond to make sure we had great Christmases. We had a toy room, a playroom when we were kids, a room that was just full with toys. So for us, I had, again, the privilege, right? And me not knowing much about kids not having those things because that was my reality, right? Where he didn't have a Christmas tree or even birthday party.
Yeah.
He didn't have a birthday party.
Yep.
So for us, we had birthday parties every year. We had a cake every year.
And don't get me wrong, my father and them wasn't like monsters. They just was too old or didn't know the in fashion of a child.
Yeah.
You know?
So we butted heads on that, you know, during Christmas time. And I'm like, no, you can't rob her of this. Like, this is what kids, you know, kids kind of have to have this experience and see Santa Claus and go through that and, you know, Elf on the Shelf and all that stuff. And so he didn't believe in it. So the first child that we had, he told her there was no Santa Claus. And so she never believed in that. And we had a lot of behavior challenges with our first daughter. And in a way, you know, when you think about it, it's like sometimes I think parents use Santa Claus as a way to say, be good because Santa's watching, you know, that kind of thing. And so for her, I didn't have that, right? Because she didn't believe in Santa. And so I think a lot of that, in a way, kind of played into her behavior because it was just like, well, why do I need to be good, you know? But with our youngest, I told them, I'm like, look, you're not robbing her of this. You're not taking Santa Claus from her. And interestingly enough, her behavior was way different. So I don't know if that played a part in it or just they're different children in general. You know, every child is different, but that's just a small example of how we kind of butted heads. And I think it was because we had those different upbringings growing up. But then we came to a happy medium, I think, over time. And we realized that, you know, he didn't have those experiences, but it shaped him to who he is today. And that's a good thing. There are some good things about that. But then on my side as well, what I experienced shaped me into who I am today. And so we had to figure out how do we meld those together and give our children the best of both worlds in a way.
But I still have a heart. You know, I'm daddy to the heart. I'm daddy to the heart. It's just that if you're crying for something, you better be bleeding. You know, you better broke something. You better be bleeding because if you're not crying, if you're crying for something else, we got an issue. So you should be crying. And you know, these are little girls, but they understand that, you know, this is the world that daddy have to teach. But we compromise and be like, okay, you handle it first, or I handle it first. But I still got a heart. I'm not a Grinch. I'm not an evil person.
No, I think what you're saying, Eddie, what I'm hearing is that love comes in many different ways, right?
Yeah,
like that's just
exactly.
it, right? And I think that even your upbringings, you were both loved, but you were loved in different ways. And then when you come together, and this is the challenge, right? This show is Pain to Power. And the whole purpose of my show is to give others tools to be able to navigate their own challenges, right? And I think there's couples out there where there are coming from different perspectives. So how do you find that you can be loved in two different ways, but come together and still find that balance of love together in how you love your children, right? And that's big. And No Holdbacks TV says everyone has a different love language for certain, right?
Exactly.
So, and Josh says both approaches are fine, and the balance is even better, obviously, right? And agreed, right? And I think like you have to maintain both of you in the relationship, and that's a thing. Like how do you do that? How do you continue to have yourselves as whole people and have each other and like as a partnership? What do you think are some of the things that you're able to do to maintain that?
I think what we learned is that we respect, over the 25 years, we respect and understand, especially after writing a memoir, because when you write a memoir, you really are diving deep into those experiences, those really key moments in your life that have impacted and changed you. And when we read each other's side of the memoir, because it's from 2 points of view, my side and his side, over the years, we learned and then respected each other's point of view more because we were able to dive deep into that. And I think that gave us an appreciation for our points of view, and it gave me I know for me, it definitely gave me a much bigger respect for understanding who he is because of how he was raised and those moments that really impacted and changed him and impacted him. And it helped me understand, oh, okay, that's why you think of things this way, or that's why you approach things this way. It was like an aha moment, and it just made me feel like, oh, I get it now. I get it. I get you more now. And so I think that's what helped us writing that memoir. It was during our 20th year by the time we published it. And for us, I think that brought us closer because we realized we both are individuals, and that's perfectly fine. And that we have those individual points of view, and we're both unique. And so it helped us gain more appreciation for each other. At least that was my perspective.
See, and it's crazy. The more we talk to you off camera and on camera, the more we see the contrast between us, right? All through the years, and it's crazy. But you know, we when it comes to that, we're two total opposite people, right? And when we get into this space, we understand each other so much that we're like, okay, we can compromise without killing each other. We can compromise without, kicking each other out. Like we have rules where no matter how mad we are, we're sleeping in the same bed, right? We're not sleeping on the couch. We're not going out, not coming home, right? These are rules, when it comes to our children. We have a Berlin Wall. We talk about stuff, but if it's one crack in that Berlin Wall, it could come down. So we try to avoid the cracks. We're so different. Like I'm outspoken, right? Like just like my father. Like I can meet you. I can stand behind you in the McDonald's line. We start talking. She not able to do that, right? But that's the beauty of it.
I think over the years you rubbed off more on
me.
Yeah,
that's the beauty. So when we wrote this memoir, she didn't want to do it. She was like, "Nah, I'm more private." Me, I'm like, if you ask me a question, I'll tell you the world. I don't have a problem with it. So we always been two different people, but our love for each other is like, no matter what it is, we can work together, compromise, and knock it out, keep it going. She believes it. The thing is, she believes in me, and I believe in her. And we both have different qualities that we believe that you can help me get here, and I can help you get here. So we don't have any, even with our business and before the business, we always had a relationship where it's like, if you got to take the driver's seat, I'm glad to be the passenger because I know it's for both of us. There's no egos. There's never been an ego with us. So if I'm in the passenger seat going to get my degree, driver's seat, then you happily in the passenger seat, like I'll ride with you. And it's the same thing. So we always been like that. So even before business, we always knew that love is, we here for a reason, and love has always been here. So we learn so much from each other to be so different from each other, but we know we're here for a purpose and we're here to love each other.
I love that. And Hoback TV says compromising is the key, and also teaches the children how important that is for certain, right? And you said, and tell them Jesus Claus is coming to town. Yes, child, Logic and friends. Hoback says, Logic, not Jesus Claus. Okay. So, I love all of this, and this is really important. And I think that what you're saying is that there's respect, there's belief, there's like this empathy for one another in your stories, and those are all really important. But I want to get to the nitty gritty a little bit, okay?
Okay.
In the moments where you are uncomfortable, where you are feeling upset, where you have moments where you have to address each other, and there's going to be discomfort. How do you each get through that? What grounds you with each other in your conversations to move through those discomfort moments?
That's a good question.
I mean, we don't kill it. I think we learned over the years to take a deep breath and then say, "Hey, what's going on?" Right? We all get these bumps in the road. We all gotta. Sometimes you can't put it on the back burner, and that's one thing we don't put on the back burner. We take it on right there. It gets emotionally heated like what sometimes, but we know we here to correct this, right? We know we gotta correct this somehow. So that's the common ground. Like, okay, we can argue, we can bigger. How we fixing this? And we find a compromise to fix it. And like I said, we can stay mad all day, but I'm not sleeping on no couch. You're not sleeping on no couch. I turn around in the morning. Hello. We just sleep over it. But we've been through it so much. When we got married, we was automatically a military family that didn't know what to do. Like, we never been in that position before. So from day one, I tell you a time that changed it, right? So one time she was pregnant, our first year. She was pregnant, and it was late at night, and I just came home from the Army. I'm dead tired, right? Now, we had a refrigerator full of food, right? But since she's pregnant, she had the cravings for grapes, right? So I come home, it's like 7:30, I'm tired. And she's like, "Hey, can I get some grapes? I want to go get some grapes." And I'm like, "I'm not going back out there, man. I'm too tired. You got a refrigerator full of food." She said, "Fine," right? But she told her mother, and her parents know me from when I was 14 years old. Her parents know me. So she told her mother, and then 2 days later, I'm hearing that I'm starving my wife. I'm starving my wife. So right at that moment, we knew that we got to keep things in-house and work it out ourselves. There's no one else on this journey because this is our journey.
Okay.
That was the first year. Every day
so Christina, tell me, in that moment, though, for you, what was it that was going? You didn't think you were being starved, but what were you feeling in that moment?
I think it was I was feeling, I think, like I was being deprived of something. I think it goes back to that rom-com fairy tale, kind of thinking where I thought, okay, well, I'm pregnant. In the movies and TV, when you're pregnant, you're craving something, the husband's supposed to go out and get it no matter what time of night or day. And so in my mind, having that thinking, I was like, well, he's going to go do it, and because he didn't go do it, I was like, whoa, this is disrupting, my expectations. And so I complained, about it to my mother because I was like, oh, whoa, I wasn't expecting him to do that, But then I realized that actually caused a little upheaval in our relationship because I'm bringing someone else into our problem that we could have resolved on our own, right? It wasn't a big deal. But at that moment was when I learned, and he learned, we both learned that, listen, we have to work. We're in this together. We have to work this out. But like, to answer your question, I was feeling deprived, like, whoa, how are you doing that to me?
But this goes back to like your upbringings being so different, and I think like the whole idea is that like it's like it's the nuanced small moments where you realize differences. It's not always the big things. It's those like tiny things that like you're expecting this. You see the rom-coms. This is the narrative. This is the story. And Eddie, you're expecting this different thing, and And it's that clash, right? But you seem like both of you have the tools and the grounding and that foundation of what you want to happen, and that no matter what happens, you're going to keep working through it. And that's huge. And I think that's great for tools for others to learn from, hopefully. But all of this has also led you to Sledge House Media. And I want to come back to that in just a moment. We're going to talk about Sledge House Media. And I want to know more about what you're doing, what you've created with it. But we're taking a quick commercial break because I also have been doing some work, and I've developed courses that are called Empowerment Unlocked. And you're going to see a commercial real quick for Empowerment Unlocked, which is really 5 courses to help you come home to self by recognizing patterns and behaviors that are harming you and creating barriers for you in your relationships with others, similar to, I think, what we're talking about here, and how we can unpack through our understanding of socialization and ourselves to come home to ourselves. So please watch this video on Empowerment Unlocked and make sure that you are signing up for those courses. They go live. We are selling tickets starting on Tuesday. Are you feeling lost in life, in yourself? You're not alone. Empowerment Unlocked will help you discover who you truly are. Start your journey today. Link in bio.
I went to Canarsie High. We go in the lunchroom, and there's 2 young girls sitting on the other side of that table. One is Christina. But at the time, I'm chasing this girl that she doesn't know, her friend.
I was a little nervous, so I had one of my friends just kind of play that matchmaker, go over, ask him if he liked me.
Chris is a different woman. You know, she is different from any woman I ever met. We grew up in a household full of adult stuff. And this is during the crack era. So during the crack era, you have a lot of people that fell victim to it.
I lived in Crown Heights section of Brooklyn, and most of the times we had gunshots going off at night. So that was pretty much the soundtrack when we went to sleep. I grew up with a really close, tight-knit family.
And my mother was in front of the window. When I was 6 months old, I was in her arms, and she was leaning out the window, and she fell 3 stories down. 3 days later, in the hospital, she died for complications of suicide. My insecurities jumped in. So I kind of had this feeling that she was going to leave me one day. So to beat her to the punch, I broke up with her like an idiot.
I ended up having a really bad breakup. So I got down on my knees and I prayed to God to really send me the person I was supposed to be with.
I didn't have any positive role models in my life at that time. I meet my 2 cousins who's older than me. So I looked at them, I said, hey man, selling drugs, whatever, put me on.
So that's kind of how it ended. So we thought.
So we got a chance to see a little bit of Joined by Fate and the some clips from there, but we also know that that's all under Sledge House Media. So tell me how, from this love story and marriage of 25 years, you also created really this empire. I mean, do you see it as an empire? I feel like it's a little bit of an empire. You're building a lot of things. You got merch, you got filmmaking, you've got writing, you know, so in your empire building, where did it begin where you now created Sledge House Media?
Well, it started in 2021. We wrote our memoir, The Story of Christina and I. We started that as our first book that we self-published under Sledge House Media. Mm-hmm. And we started it as a publishing company. And then we realized when people started reading the book, they said, you know, this has got to be a movie. You have to turn this into a movie. And so we wrote a screenplay. And I went back to school. I went to NYU for film and TV production. And I said, you know what, we're going to make a short film about our memoir. And we're going to start from there. And we're going to turn it into a feature film. We wrote a screenplay for it and everything. So I said, you know what, we're going to turn this into a multi-platform entertainment company instead. And so from there, basically a year and a half later, We produced Joined by Fate. We put it on the film festival circuit. It won 4 awards for Best Documentary Short Film. We were in several film festivals for official selections, and it was just like, whoa, people were receiving it so well. And then from there, we started doing more projects. We did audio projects. We're streaming now. Joined by Fate is streaming on platforms. You can catch it on Amazon, all over. And so from there, we said, you know what, we're going to get into publishing. We're going to do audio projects. We're going to do film. We're going to do video production. So right now we're in 3 different real, lines of business, you can say. We have publishing led to promotion, led to production. So we also produce video projects for companies and nonprofit organizations. So it just spawned into all these different ways that we can help the community, support people in their paths of what they're trying to do now and telling their story. So our slogan is storytelling is our business. Yeah. So anything storytelling is what Sledge House Media does now.
And like I said, we contrast each other, right? So we didn't know until we started this, but I always been a storyteller. Like I said, I could see you on the street and we start talking. She always been project manager. So I'm good at storytelling. And after the memoir, I start coming up with fiction stuff. And, I wanted to write about my brother-in-law who passed away. So I couldn't find a way to do it and started writing fiction. And I started writing like 30 books now. But she always been the mastermind behind it, project management. She always had that skill producing. So, I'm the writer, she the producer. We work together, and we make it work. We don't say why we can't do it. It's like, oh, we're doing that. Why not? That's what we want. If we want to do this, we're doing it.
I love that. I mean, and it sounds like you find the balance not only in family and marriage, but also in business, which is beautiful, right? And bringing, again, your individual perspectives and skills into it. That's a beautiful thing. So tell us a little bit about what currently is happening, we should be paying attention to, people are looking forward to, how do they follow you, all the things.
Oh, good. All right. Well, right now, what is really big for us is A Day at Shea. That is our children's book, and it is based off of Eddie's true story. Yeah. He went to Shea Stadium when he was 9 years old by himself using a free ticket from a Frosted Flakes cereal box, took that ticket, cashed in bottles in the Brooklyn bodega, and got enough money to get on the subway. Back then there were tokens you had to use anyone from New York. And so he took that, went to Shea Stadium. And when he wrote about that in a memoir, I had no idea.
Yeah, it was the back of my head.
Right. And 9 years old, this man did that by himself with true determination and grit. So it just inspired me. I said, we need to make this into a children's book. We have to kind of actually Victoria is a really good friend of ours. Victoria DaCosta, he said, you know what, that's kind of like a Rome Alone story, like a Home Alone, Rome Alone story. And so we said, yeah, you know what, let's make it into a children's book. So we call it A Day at Shea, and we turned it into a girl. And right now it's big for us because we have turned it into an audio book. We have a coloring book. It's going to be translated into Spanish. And we have a big event with the Mets on May 24th at 6 p.m. at Citi Field, full circle moment. We're having a home play ceremony honoring both of us for our work with children's literacy. And Eddie is going to be honored with Veteran of the Game. So it's like a full circle moment. So that's right now is A Day at Shea. You can catch the book. You can get that on our website on sledgehousemedia.com. You can go to anywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can go to our merch site, sledgehouse.mediastore.com. We have merch for it. You can go to the game. So that's big for us right now. And we're also coming out with another children's book called Joy on the Radio, and that's coming out soon. So that's a big one. So stay tuned for that. So you can follow us on Sledge House Media on all of our platforms. Also on our website, sledgehousemedia.com, and our merch site, sledgehouse-media-store.com.
And all of those are linked below. So you have all the information to be able to connect with Eddie and Christina and learn more about. And if you're in New York, yes, go check out on May 24th the day a day at Shea and your special ceremony. And that's amazing. I see Better Minds Evolving. Welcome, Trini. Says beautiful concept. Absolutely. And I love that coloring book, having it translated. Dialogic and Friends says love that. Beautiful things. And I mean, again, you're just like building and building and building. And that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So we are going to be closing out now. Thank you so much for your time. But before we do, final words about pain to power in relationships. What are your thoughts of just what we need to walk away with to think about as tools as couples or maybe single people who are looking to be as a couple and need some tips on just how do you make it last? How do you make it work?
One thing, if you want to avoid pain the best way you can, don't turn red flags into burgundy flags.
Right? Ooh, tell me
if
more.
If you know it's a red flag and you know it's a red flag, don't deny it and turn it burgundy and be like, I can make it better, or it's not a red flag. If it's a red flag, I mean, it's up to you to go that route. But if you know it's a red flag, it's a red. We watch TV, like 90 Day Fiance, and know people too. And you sit there like, that's a red flag, and you know it's a red flag. Don't make it burgundy, because that's going to save you a lot of pain.
Yeah, and another thing we say is, every relationship is like a fingerprint. Yeah. Everyone has a finger, right? Either you have a relationship, it's like a finger, but your own unique relationship is your own fingerprint. Yeah. So don't compare it to anyone else. That can sometimes bring pain, right, to relationships. So we say, don't try to compare your journey to someone else's or your relationship to someone else's. Understand that it's unique to you, and that's okay. That is 100% okay. And it helps to just have that as a perspective and to be open. I always say, be open to the possibilities of what you can learn from the pain that you might go.
Absolutely. I love that. And Better Minds Evolving says awesome advice. Definitely agree. Agreed for certain. We're not letting those red flags become burgundy, and we're not comparing ourselves to other. I really love that, Christina, the idea of a fingerprint. And that definitely is every individual relationship. Thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your story.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
This was really enjoyable. I really enjoyed it. And definitely make sure you're following Sledge House Media, that you go to their website. It's amazing. There's so many different things. And if you're looking to publish, you're looking to create some film, you know where to go now. And please follow me. If you are new and you are watching because of Eddie and Christina, please make sure you follow me. I'm Brown Girl Interrupting. I have this show every Sunday at 8 p.m. all about the stories of healing and how we are finding our strength in our struggles. But also I am a writer, and I have my blog, I have my website, all those are linked below as well. And I have these courses, so make sure that you are signing up too. So Christina and Eddie, please make sure you're sharing it with others. We are learning how to unlock empowerment, so everyone has their own green flags flying high to know how to heal ourselves so that we are ready for those relationships, those commitments, those experiences, parenting, whatever it is that we're tackling in life, by knowing ourselves and coming home to ourselves. So thank you so much again. And thank you to my audience. Thank you to the iRant Network, and to, of course, our producer, the amazing Mr. M. Dialogic. And to all of our iRant family for tuning in and supporting. Please make sure that you leave a comment about something that resonated with you today. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace, love, and light.